All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 13 of the online Rankin Technical College AWD1100 C# programming class. Today, what I decided to do, as I mentioned in the email this morning, is to do the pretest just from the get-go, and any remaining time that we have today will be lab. I imagine that even if we take our time, that we can do the first problem in like the first hour and the second problem in the second hour. And hopefully then you'll have the rest of the period for lab. I do want to make sure, because there was some confusion over people sending me emails, that as it says right here, tomorrow is going to be your second hands-on test. As we did previously, I will email it to you by 7 a.m. I will go over it between 8:05 a.m. and 8:20 a.m. You will have the rest of the period to work on it. You will have until midnight to work on it and turn it in. All right. I will go over each problem. There are 3 problems, I believe, on the test, and I will go over all of them at the beginning of the period. I will be online. I will be online tomorrow, for the entire period. And then in the afternoon, I'll be checking my email every 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll be doing so until 10 p.m. All right. And the test will be due by midnight. Now, that's tomorrow. On Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be going over chapters 6 and 7. Not sure yet what we'll be doing on Friday. Let's just wait until we're a little later on in the week. I will tell you that on Thursday, all right, and I'm broadcasting right now from Rankin, and I come in on Mondays and Thursdays. On Thursday, we have what's called Shadow Attack. What that means is there's going to be 3 people coming in here, at least scheduled 3 people, who are going to be coming in here and, kind of, for lack of better words, watching me talk to the computer. But the idea is they get a little bit of an idea of what the class is all about. So they're supposed to come in at 8:45, and what I'm supposed to do is give them a 15-minute or so presentation on what the program is about. So on Thursday, if they are here, if one or more are here by 8:45, then from around 8:45 until 9 o'clock or so, all right, I'll be kind of cutting out. I'll be still online with all of you, but I'll be going over what we do in the program. All right, just so you have some kind of an idea of what's going on. All right, and again, your completed Murach chapters 4 and 5 test will be due tomorrow. It's given tomorrow and it's due tomorrow by midnight. Your completed Murach chapters 4 and 5, I move that off till this Friday. All right, so it's the 2nd at midnight that it's due. Actually, I guess midnight Saturday morning, however you want to say that. All right, okay. So with that said, let's just get started. Let's start by taking a look at the test itself just for a minute or two. This was a pretest. As it says here, you are to create 2 different C# graphical user interface or Windows Forms projects. Create both under the same solution. All right. And that's kind of to the point where it's getting to be important. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in just a second. So there's 2 projects. For each of them, do these 4 things. Set the tab order. We've done that many times. Set the accept button, set the cancel button, and set the start position. All right. Change the name of the form and change the text that appears on top of the form. We'll do all that. Next, create a program prologue at the beginning of the code. And all I'm going to do is copy what's here on the test. Finally, for any numeric values inputted, verify that each value is first, not empty. Second, that it basically is a number. All right, it's a little confusing to say not non-numeric, but you want to make sure it is a number. And third, to make sure that it is within range. So with the first one we are to do, I'm just going to grab everything for right now from right here and copy it to the clipboard. All right, so this is a temperature conversion program. We've already looked at something similar to this, but this is going in both directions. And you might say, oh, we sort of did that too. Okay, then we did. But I'm going to do it and do it nice and slow. All right. So you can either convert a temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius or from Celsius to Fahrenheit. As it says right here, we want to verify that the input that you put in is not empty, that it is numeric, and it's within range. So we're going to create these constants that you see right here, and there are 4 of them. In addition, even though this is not part of your test, all right, but it is what we'll start to cover on Wednesday, I'm going to try to modularize the program. In other words, I'm not going to take everything we have and put it in one routine. All right. The conversion formulas are shown right there as well. And then as it says here, so if you come in here and you leave it blank and you click either one of these buttons, you should get a message similar to this. All right. Here's something that works. So if I put in 75 and click that button, 23.89 should come there. Or looking at it the other way, if I put 23.89 there and click this button, 75 should come in there. So both buttons should work, as should the clear button work, as should the exit button work. All right, here's an example of something non-numeric being put in there. All right, and here is an out of range input that's in there. All right, so that's the first one. So I'm going to create that right now. When you are working on your test tomorrow, you are going to be asked to put everything under the same solution. What that means is I don't want, for example, this, I'm going to show you how to do it right now. This is the last test that we took, the last pretest. All right, so there's pretest, and there were a bunch of problems on it. Okay, that I did both. I did those both as GUI apps and as non-GUI apps. Okay, well, make sure I didn't keep anybody out of here. Okay, this time they're only going to be GUI apps, but we're going to put them under the same solution. Every one of these problems that's in here right now is under this same solution. And what I'm saying, well, that doesn't look good. But what I am saying in here is what I don't want is I don't want you to create a new solution for each problem on the test. That's not what the instructions tell you to do. All right, let me just close all this stuff. And I'm going to come in, and this is pretest 2, problem 1. So I'm going to right mouse click on my solution. I'm going to choose add. I'm going to choose new project to keep it simple. I'm going to choose Windows Forms.NET Framework. And I'm going to call this pretest 02_01. And when I do this and click create, not only is it going to create my project, but you see it's here and it's in the same solution. What I'm going to start doing is if you don't follow the instructions, and I will show you how to follow the instructions every time, you are going to lose points. All right. Part of what you're supposed to be learning in this class is how to effectively use a source control management system like Git and GitHub. All right. So we've got this. I'm going to keep it simple. All right. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name of my form. It's a temperature converter. So I'm right mouse clicking on the form. I'm choosing rename, and I'm going to call it FRM temperature converter.cs. When I hit enter, if this worked, I should get a dialog that says, hey, do you want to rename everything? And you say yes. And you'll notice that all of my files in here now have been renamed. All right, next, I want to go in and click on the form itself. You'll see it now says FRM temperature converter. And I want to go down to where the form text is. And I'm going to change it from form 1 to temperature converter. And you'll see that now there's that text in there. All right, so that's the first couple things. Next, and you don't have to do this next thing. I just don't like the fact that I've watched these videos before when I leave everything gray and it's kind of hard to see where something starts and something ends. So I'm going to change the back color on here. And I'm just going to choose the yellow right there. All right. Now, next, I'm going to build the interface. If you take a look on the test, what you should see, let's just look at the one that worked. There we go. We've got two labels here. One that says far temp, one that says cell temp. We've got two text boxes here. All right, one that currently says 75, one that currently says 23.89. And we have 4 buttons. A convert F to C button, a convert C to F button, a clear button, and an exit button. So that's what I'm about to build right now. All right. So I'm going to try to be as true to the actual test as I can. So what I mean is I'm going to start by putting in my 4 buttons. All right. So there's my buttons right there. Next, I'm going to put in my two um, text boxes. I'm not worrying about right now yet about naming this stuff. We're going to do that in just a second. Oops, wrong control. There we go. All right. And then finally, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in my 2 labels. All right. I don't care if you make the labels the same color, a different color, really in the end doesn't matter. I'm going to make these transparent labels. And what I mean is I'm just going to use the same color, all right, that we have in here, the same background color. All right. You can do it either way. Again, it really and truly in the end does not matter. Auto size, I'm setting right there to false. Okay, I'll make this a little wider here. And I'm going to copy it and paste it, and it's going to go right there. Now there pretty much is my interface. I'm going to highlight everything and I'm going to change the size of my text. Again, you don't have to do that. All right. But I am going to make it easier, hopefully, for you to read. All right. So there is my interface right now. I should even be able to right now lock it into place. So I'm doing that as well. All right. So let's start naming these things. The first button will be BTN, and I'm just going to call it what it is, convert F to C. All right, and I'm also going to put that in, without the BTN, of course, as the text for the button. But I can add some spacing in here now. You can't put spaces in, cannot, when you're naming something, but when you're actually putting it in there like this, totally fine. So here's my convert F to C. This one is going to be my convert C to F. It's too good. All right, so there's the second one. Then we have our clear and our exit buttons. And I didn't put underscores here. We can go back and do that if you want. That's totally fine. Where I've got convert F to C, let's put the underscore before the letter F. under the letter F. So there it is. For this one, let's put it under the letter C. All right, so there that is. And for clear on here, we'll put it before the L in clear. Finally, for our exit, we'll put it before the X. And I've got to change the name of that one as well to BTN exit. All right, so my buttons have been renamed. All right, so let's go in and name the other stuff. So this says far temp right there. So I'm going to call it LBL far temp. You want, you could just put the whole word Fahrenheit in there, but far is totally fine. So there's that. And then I'll make this TXT far temp. All right, and this will be cell temp for Celsius, with cell temp in there as the text. All right, and finally, this will be TXT cell temp. And you know, because you've watched me do these enough, that I like stuff centered. So I'm just going to center this. You do not have to do that. All right. But now that's centered, and I'm going to center these two also. All right. Now I believe at least the interface is finished, but I always like to check that by going and clicking right under properties. It doesn't matter what's hot, what you've chosen here, but I want to click the down arrow button and double check and make sure everything has been renamed. And indeed, it all looks like it has been renamed. Okay, so far I've come in and I have changed the name of the form. I have built my GUI. I have renamed my controls. All right, now what you do next is up to you. What I'm going to do next is click here on the form. I'm going to set my accept button. And it doesn't matter. It could be anything. I'm just going to choose the first one, which is convert F to C. All right. And I'm going to set that was my accept button. So my cancel button, I'm going to set to BTN clear. All right. I'm going to set my Windows start position from the Windows default location to center screen. And then I'm going to set my tab order. I'm going to set the tab order like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to click over here on the form, go to view tab order. And again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do another view tab order so the numbers go away. All right, and I'm going to write my code now, but before I do, not a bad time to come in and do a file, save all. All right, I could run it right now, but nothing right in here right now, nothing works because there's no code attached to anything that's in here. So just for now, I'm going to double click on each button. All right, so I've now got all my button stuff in here. Now, I wasn't smart enough to go back and find where I gave you that exit button code, so I'll have to get that in just a bit. But let's start with here. This is pretty simple. All right, I have to clear this, and if I want, since since this was my first thing, my tab order, I'll set the focus here. So clear, clear, set focus. Well, that isn't very hard. Again, what we're going to learn starting in chapter 6 later on this week is modularization. There is technically nothing wrong with putting our code right here that would clear the stuff. But you saw this earlier in the semester where, like, if you add, for example, menu items, a menu to do this, you want to be able to call the same routine from multiple places. And even though you can call a buttons click routine from anywhere, it's not considered to be the best practice. So I'm going to make a clear form right here, we get the error because, of course, it hasn't been written. So let's write it right down below. And the IntelliSense picked it all up for us. So I'm going to have txt fairtemp dot text equals nothing. txt celltemp dot text equals nothing. And txt fairtemp dot focus. That I can now come in and check right away to make sure that it's working. So let's do a file save all again, run the program. Oops, got to reset my startup project. So right mouse click on the project name, choose set as startup project, and run the program. All right, so again, it doesn't matter right now, put anything in there. My mouse is right here. So when I click clear, they both cleared and my focus moved over. So that's good. I know that works. All right. Next, I'm going to come in and at least try. In fact, I should be able to come back to one of these. So let's see. I don't remember which way I did this. So all right. Looks like these might have all been console programs. So I just want to go back and find one of my programs. Or I can just grab that exit. There we go. Come on. There we go. So here's that exit program or not. In fact, I'm going to just grab every bit of this right there. And while I'm at it, I'm going to grab that show error message that you see there too. Okay. And now go back to my program. All right. So I now have my call in here to exit program or not. There that is. And I added that show error message. So now again, I can do a file, save all. I can run it and just double check, make sure the exit button works. Okay, so that's good. It works. Now, even though, as I said, technically you don't have to do any modularization in here, and you don't. You don't have to do any modularization. It still would be a good idea, I think at least, if we did in one of these, when we're in here and we're figuring out the convert, you can see it already is modularized a little bit. So this will be convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. This will be convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. That's not going to be hard either. But first, let's go in here and let's remove this. You were told that you were supposed to go in and put in some kind of a prologue. So I'm going to copy that prologue that we had at the beginning of the test. That's it right here. I'm not going to worry about prettying it up or anything else. I'm just going to throw it in there. So there it is. I've got the prologue. I'll clean it up later. I'm going to take this thing that I'm doing right now, and later I'm going to put the entire thing out onto, I'll put the entire program out onto GitHub. All right. Okay. The other thing we were told in here is that we had some 4 program constants. All right. When you're putting in your program constants, a couple of you have tried doing this. You can't put them in up here. You've got to put them in underneath at least this line right here. All right. Just because of the way these are set up. So I'm going to say here, declare and initialize program constants. There were 4 of them that were mentioned to us. All right. And I'm going to make all of them decimal. There's min far and that's equal to negative 212. There's max var, and that was equal to positive 212. All right. There's min Celsius. I could call it min cell, min Celsius. It doesn't really matter. I think, let's see, what were we told to call it? Min var, max var, min Celsius, and max Celsius. All right, so I'm going to use those names. And that's set equal to negative 100. Whoops, 100. And a const decimal max Celsius. And that's equal to positive 100. Now, you may have noticed already, it's not giving me errors, and I'm kind of surprised, but I should still put the M on each one of these to signify that they are decimal values. If you want, again, we can line this up like little soldiers. You don't have to do that. But I now have in here all 4 of my constants. All right. Now, the way that this is going to be set up is I'm not going to be passing stuff back and forth. And if you say, I don't know what you mean, that's because we haven't talked about it yet. And that's going to be part of the subject of Wednesday's lecture. All right. So for now, I'm going to make some global variables, also known as class variables here. So again, I'm going to declare and initialize class variables. All right. And I'm going to have 3 of them. I'm going to have decimal temp. That's just going to be a temperature. Okay. And if you say, I don't get what you mean, I can use that if I'm going from Fahrenheit to Celsius, or if I'm going from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So I'm going to have another decimal right here, and that's going to be called Celsius. And finally, one more decimal in here, and that's going to be called Fahrenheit. Now you can take these variables and initialize them. So I can say equals 0M for all of those, but you don't have to. You must initialize constants, because the way that constants are set up, you do not have to initialize variables. All right. It's still not a bad idea to do it. Now, if you do it, sometimes what you're going to get from the system is a warning saying that you don't need to do that. All right. And, so big deal. All right. So we're all set up to be doing basically everything we want to do in here. So the idea is when I run this, if I come in there and leave it blank and I click in here, I should get an error message. If I come in here, all right, if I come in there and I put in something non-numeric and click here, I should get an error message. If I put in something here or in here that's greater than positive 212 or less than negative 212, I again should get an error message. All right, if I put in something between negative 212 and positive 212 and click this, I should get the corresponding answer there. And the same thing works here, except in here, my range is going to be negative 100 to positive 100. All right. What we're going to get to, hopefully soon, eventually, is when we do this, we're going to write 2 routines right now that are going to be very, very, very similar in nature, because we're doing the same thing both times. In an ideal world, we would be able to write just one routine and let the system know that, hey, here I'm going from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and here I'm going from Celsius to Fahrenheit. That's what we're going to work on doing shortly. Not right now, though. All right, so this is convert F to C. So I'm going to call this one convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. Now that's a long name, really typically longer than a name you're going to create, but it's okay because it is self-descriptive. I'm not putting a boatload of comments in here. You saw those at the beginning. If I was writing this with the idea that I'm creating this, and eventually someone else is going to be picking it up and maintaining it, possibly adding to it, etc. I put more comments in here than I currently have put in there. My litmus test for this is, if you have to ask, should I put a comment in on this line? If you have to ask that, all right, you probably need a comment. Now, things to not put comments in for, I've had people do this, not a joke. It isn't funny. I've had people take tests and write down, put a comment in saying this is a blank line. Well, it's not, because you put a comment in there that said that. I've had people where you say something like x plus plus or plus plus x, add 1 to x. Those aren't necessary. They're redundant. All right. So this is going to be eventually, when we go from Fahrenheit to Celsius, this is going to be the formula that we're going to use. We're not going to do it right away. All right, there's many different ways that you can do this. All right, I want to say that again. There are many different ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you a way of doing it. I'm not at all claiming it's the best way. I think that it is one of the most, I don't know what you'd call it, ways that are probably the most straightforward. That's what I'm going to do. Now that I look at this, Fahrenheit is spelled wrong there. So now it's right there, and now it's right there. Okay. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a Boolean variable called keep going. All right. And again, how you do this is up to you. And I'm going to set it, I can set it equal to true here, for example, or I can set it equal to a call to another routine that I'm going to put down there. For now, I'll just leave it true. Totally fine. So now I'm going to put a comment here that says call routine to validate our Fahrenheit to Celsius text box, not empty. All right. And you're going to notice that when I do this, I'm going to be using names that are very similar to the comments. So keep going, equal, validate, FAHR, validate FAHR, temp, not empty. All right, which is a routine that hasn't been written yet. So we're going to write it right down here. Now, a couple things. This has got to be a Boolean here. I have to return true or false. Why? Because I'm taking whatever I return from here and I'm going to stuff it into keep going. So if it was valid, and I see I spelled another one wrong, but if it's not valid, I don't want to go on. If it is valid, I can go on. All right. Now my error left here, but I have an error here. And I have an error right here because it's looking for me to say return true or say return false. It's looking for me to say one of those. All right. And I'm going to basically do that in just a second. Okay. So I want to validate that this is not empty. All right. This is the way I usually do things. And it just comes from doing this over time. Again, if you come up with a different way of doing what I'm about to show you and your way works, more power to you. It's not a problem whatsoever. So in this routine right here, I'm going to say bool ret val, which is short for return value, is equal to true. So I'm going to assume here that I'm going to return true, but it's pretty simple. I'm going to say if, in fact, let's do it the way I was showing you the other day. And that is, I'll say string. All right. And we can call it whatever we want. I'll call it far temp. And I'm going to say that's equal to txt f far temp dot text dot trim. So now I've trimmed it. All right. And I can say if var temp is equal to nothing, then we know that there's nothing in that text box. All right, we left the text box empty. So as the IntelliSense is trying to tell me, yes, I can say ret val equal false, and I can do a show message, show error message, I guess we called it. So show error message, and we're going to put in there text box cannot be empty. All right, so that'll be the text for it. And then the heading will be empty FAHR text box. All right, so now I've handled that. But the other thing, it's a nice thing to do would be to set the focus there. So I'll say txt var temp dot focus. All right, so I've handled the bad case. This is the good case. So all I want to do right now is return ret val. And again, you have to kind of play computer here. All right, we set ret val initially. We set this thing to true. So if we come in here, if this is not empty, in other words, if we put something in it, I'm not saying it's valid, but if we put something in it, so if there's something in there, all right, then we skip this and we go right down and we return true. However, if we did leave it empty, we set our return value to false, we show the user an error, we set the focus to there, and then we return. So we're returning false. All right, so let's see if this one we can test it yet. So I left it blank. All right, empty var text box. Text box cannot be empty. And there's our cursor. So that worked. So that was the first check, so to speak, that we put in there. All right, so we said validate var temp not empty. Well, what's the next thing we want to do? Next, we want to validate that the var temp is numeric. All right, so if keep going, in other words, if that returned true, then I want to say keep going, keep going equal, and now I'm going to say validate var temp is numeric, And again, we haven't written that yet, so we're getting an error. If, however, it returned false for us, all we want to do is return. Right? So let's write this one now. And again, it has to return a Boolean because it's going into keep going. All right, so there's our temp not empty. And this will be our next one. Private bool validate var temp is numeric. You'll notice that even though I get an error here because I'm not returning anything yet, my error up here has gone away now. All right, this is all stuff that we have done on more than one occasion. All right, so again, different ways of doing this. This is how I'm going to do it. If we get down to here, there was something that was put into that text box. We don't know if it's valid or not. All right, remember, it has to be a number and it has to be between -212 and +212. Now, all we're checking is the first part to make sure it's a number. We'll do the range check next. All right, so again, I'm going to have in here bool ret val equal true, and another bool that I'm going to just call result. All right, and again, you have seen what I'm about to do. You have seen me do this on more than one occasion. I'm going to say result equal decimal dot try parse. What am I trying to parse? All right, what am I trying to parse? Well, if you look in here, if I try using this again, I define this variable right here. I define that in here. In other words, it's defined in this routine. So if I want to use it in another routine, I either have to pass it, which we haven't talked about yet, or define it again. So I'm defining it again. All right, so what am I trying to parse? I'm trying to parse this var temp. And if it works, where do I want my output to go into? Well, if you look at the top here, we created something called Fahrenheit, and we created something called Celsius, and we created something called temp. Let's use temp here. All right. So I'll put temp in there. Now, you know this already. You're all smart people. You know that either this worked or this didn't work. And that's what I'm going to check next. So if not result, that means it didn't work. It did not work. So what do I want to do? I'm going to do another show error message. All right. And I'll put in there for my message. Again, we can put anything we want, but I'll put down here, we put down text box cannot be empty. And so here I'll put down text box value must be numeric. All right. And for here, we put here for this one, we put empty var text box. So for this one, I'll put non-numeric var text box. There was something in there though. So what do I want to do? I want to say txt var temp dot text equals nothing. I want to clear out whatever's in there. And then I want to say txt var temp dot focus. So my cursor is there. And finally, I want to set ret val equal to false because my test failed. All right. And again, I can come down here now and say return ret val. So again, play computer. All right. So we come in here and we attempt to parse whatever was in the text box. If it was successful, it'll go into temp. If it was unsuccessful, result will be false. If result is false, we give the user an error message. We clear out whatever junk was in there. We set the focus. We set our return value. If we did have a number in there, we skip this and we go basically and take this and return that. So we can now test this. So if I come in here and put in something non-numeric, all right, non-numeric, var text box value must be numeric. It cleared it out and it put the focus there. It appears as though so far, everything we've done is working. All right. So going back here to this, we've now tested two things. So we tested this. If that worked, we did this. If this didn't work, we went to here. So we want to again say, if keep going. But now what we want to test, is we want to make sure that it's within range. So I'm going to say keep going equal validate. And let me just do one thing here because this was bad on my part. I should make these capitalized because again, I want to do it the way that it's done in our textbook. All right, so let me just change these as well. Either way is okay. They'll both work. All right, but I'm trying to keep consistent with the textbook. All right, so this is going to be validate var temp in range. In other words, what we want to validate right there is that that Fahrenheit temperature is between, all right, we want to validate that it is between negative 212 and positive 212. Okay. All right. So I'll put that down here. It's again going to be a Boolean that it's returning. All right. Now, this one's a little different because right now we do know that there was a number put in there. Because if there wasn't a number put in there, our previous check would have failed. So I don't have to check it again. I don't have to parse it. All right. Temp already holds a number. I want to say that again. Temp, which is what we parse that into right here, it already holds a number. Because if it didn't, we wouldn't have called this routine. So again, I'm going to say bool ret val equal true, but now it's just an if statement. So if temp is less than min-var, or temp is greater than max-var. All right, technically you don't need the outer parentheses that I've got in there. All right, you could have done it with less parentheses. It's just the way I code. So if that's the case, very similar to what we just did. In fact, I can grab all this and I'm going to change the message, but the rest of it should be okay. So I don't want to say here must be numeric. All right. I'm going to say must be within range. Now I could be nice and give them the range here as well. So I could say, I could give them what? Min, far, plus, and max. Oh, I spelled it wrong. That's why I'm getting the error. Min, far, and max, far. All right. And I probably should put a space in there. Okay. And I need a plus sign there. All right. So now I don't want it to say non-numeric. I'm going to say out of range, far text box. So again, I put a number in there, but it's either less than negative 212 or greater than positive 212. So I'll clear that number out. I'll set the focus. I'll set my ret val. And either way, I want to say return ret val. I should now be able to check this one. So if I put in a number less than negative 212, so negative 213, there's my error, out of range. And it even says what the range is. Clears it. Again, out of range. All right, that's good. So I've made all my checks now. So this was, if keep going, etc. So if this worked, all right, else I return, but now I'm down to the bottom. So if keep going, what do I know? Well, guess what? Now I can actually do the temperature conversion. All right. So I can calculate the Celsius temperature now. I can do that. I can go in now and actually calculate the Celsius temperature. So let's call calculate Celsius temperature. Again, it hasn't been written. So I'm going to come down here, copy that. This one's not returning anything. All right. So this is just going to be a void. And I've got it up here someplace in there. So Celsius equal this. All right. Now, mine is going to be a little bit different, but you'll see it's virtually the same thing. All right. I put it into temp. So temp. Now, why am I getting errors? Probably because I don't have M's on the end of this. Probably. And a semicolon. There you go. So I now have everything except I have to say txt cell temp equals Celsius dot toString, and I can format it to N2, so 2 decimal places, or I can do it with string interpolation, and I'll comment one of them out. So I can come in and say equals $, and then just put in here Celsius and then N2. All right. Either one of those would work. Why? Because they're both doing the same thing. All right. So we were given an actual test value in the test itself. And that was, whoops, that was, there we go. I'm going to put 75 there and see if I get 23.89 here. All right. So let's run it. 75, 23.89. All right. Clear works and exit works. All right. So we'll take a break in a second, in a few minutes. But what I want to do for the other one is basically, I want to write the same stuff I just wrote, but instead of saying something like validate var temp, I want to say validate cell temp. All right. But I'm basically, again, going to write the same thing so that when I run this and put 23.89 here and click this, a 75 goes in there. All right. So again, I'm basically doing the same thing. All right. I'm writing the same routine twice, and all I'm doing is flipping around my variables. Just like this says, all right, convert F to C, and this calls convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. Now, all right, I'm going to want to come way down here. And what am I going to want to do? I'm going to want to call convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. And again, I'll get an error because it has not yet been written. All right. And that'll be put down here. It's a little early, but it's 8:57. All right, let's come back, please, at 9:10. We'll finish this one up and jump right into the next one. All right, so I'll see you at 9:10. All right, it is 10 after 9, so I'm going to continue. Sometimes I sit there and kind of wonder, when I'm do part of a program and then I say the next part is similar, so I copy a bunch of stuff. Maybe I would be better off actually just keying it in again. So I am going to accept, I'm going to take this thing right here, which is all the routines that I want to call. All right, and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to put all of those down into here. Now I'm going to get an error right now when I do this. All right, I'm going to get an error, but we'll fix it in just a moment. All right, I want to call this convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. So let's change that. All right, okay. So notice I did come in during the break and I put some comments in here. I said driver, and I put that into double quotes. There's no real, in this routine right here, there's no processing being done other than we're calling other routines to do the processing for us. And as I mentioned before, that's kind of like how what main does when you're working in a console program. And I likened that to having a supervisor. And I don't at all mean to say that supervisors don't do work, but a lot of times when there's something to be done, a really good supervisor knows who to delegate authority to best get that done. And that's kind of what we're doing here. So again, the first thing we want to do now is we want to change this from C to F. So we want to validate that the Celsius text box is not empty. All right. So we're going to do that. We're going to write that in just a second. In fact, I'll put it right underneath here. And we're going to do it in the same way that we did it up here. All right. And again, the reason that I am doing it again in here, right here, is I'm trying to, for lack of better words, just for, sounds terrible almost, but kind of pound it into your head the way that this stuff is done. All right. Now I will go in and copy the first one, and then we'll end up writing most of the rest of them. All right. So I'm going to come down into here. And again, now it's not var temp, it's cell temp, and that's txt cell. And of course, that means this will also have to be cell. And I'll have to change, but I can keep this, except I'll make this cell. And I'll make this cell. So hopefully, looking at this twice, you understand what's going on here. All right. This is just something that we're going to use to check. And we're either going to return true. All right. If the Celsius text box is not empty, or we're going to return false if it is empty. So this is, rather than us having to type in here, txt cell temp.text.trim right here, I just put it into a variable. All right, and now that I look at this, there's a mistake in here, so I want to fix it. Maybe you noticed this, maybe you didn't. All right, let's see, not empty. That is correct. Let's see, I thought I saw a mistake in here. No, maybe I didn't. Well, let's just keep going. Okay, I guess it is okay. All right, so this is saying, hey, is there nothing in there? If there's nothing in there, we're setting ret val equal to false. What does that mean? Look at the name. We're returning true if indeed that text box is not empty, and we're returning false if it is empty. So if it is empty, we're setting it to false, we're showing an error message, and we're setting the focus, and we're returning. If this was not empty, it goes right from here to here and then down to here. All right, so that's our first one. All righty, now going back up here, that one's now correct, but now look in here. Now we've got to write now we've got to say validate cell temp is numeric. Whoops, sorry. Of course, we get an error because, again, it hasn't been written yet. And again, it's going to return a Boolean. If indeed we put a number in there, and it'll return true then, otherwise it'll return false. And again, very similar to what we did before. So we'll come in and say string cell temp equals txt cell temp dot text dot trim. All right. And now I can do my bool ret val equal true and my bool result. All right. And just like we did before, we're going to come in here and attempt to parse text box value into a decimal. So what does that mean? It means result equal decimal dot try parse. What are we parsing? Cell temp. Where are we putting the result in? Again, we'll put it into temp, just like we did before. Oh, I don't know what happened there, but something did. Let me try to fix that. All right. Again, that either worked or it didn't work. So if it doesn't work, just like before, we're going to call show error message. And I'm trying to be consistent here, so I am going to grab whatever I put in for the other error message. And that was here. And then just change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius. All right, so non-numeric cell text box or Celsius, whatever you want. Okay, and again, we'll have to say txt temp.focus. All right, but now there was something in there. So we also want to clear it out. So txt cell temp dot text equals nothing. Finally, we want to set return val. So ret val equal false. And then we come in here just like we've been doing, and we return ret val. All right. So that's going to handle the case of us putting something in there that was non-numeric. All right. Now, I didn't do this before, and I should have. Shame on me, but I should be able to now go in there and check for nothing in here, and I do get empty cell, like maybe should change that to Celsius. It doesn't matter. Text box cannot be empty. All right, now I should also be able to check for non-numeric Celsius text box. Okay. All right, so the only thing I have to check on, so right now, this isn't doing anything. Oh, it is. I've got out of range, but it's the wrong one. Okay, because it's calling the wrong one. So this is good. This is good. So we validated that the cell temp is not empty. We validated that the cell temp is numeric. Now we've got to validate that the cell temp is in range. All right, so let's do that one next. All right, and again, we don't need a, we do need a ret val like this, but we don't need a result because we've already validated that it was numeric. So if, in fact, we need one more thing, I'm sorry. Again, we'll say string cell temp equals txt cell temp dot text dot trim, just like we did before. All right. So again, if cell temp is less than the min Celsius, or in fact, that's not cell temp, I'm sorry. We put that before we put it into temp. So if temp is less than min Celsius, or temp is greater than max Celsius. Notice before I put it in, and I put an additional set of parentheses in here, actually 2 sets. You do need at least 1 in here. I like to be perfectly clear, so I like to do it like this. Usually, if you do it like that, there's a good chance you're going to get a message, a warning from C# right here that says, you don't need that. See that it's showing, it's saying you're doing this, this would be fine. Hey, sorry. Okay. So again, I want to, if that's the case, what do I want to do? Just like I've been doing, I want to call show error message. All right. Again, let's get that message we had before. All right, text box value must be within range. Now I want to say min cell, I think it was Celsius, and max Celsius. Out of range cell text box. Again, you can say Celsius, whatever you want. All right, now there's a couple more things to do. Again, txt cell temp dot text equals nothing. Txt cell temp dot focus. And finally, ret val is false. Then I want to come back and return ret val. So now, friends there, now I should be able to check for my do my range check. So if I do come in here and put in -100, it's not going to give me anything yet. It says cannot be, text box cannot be empty. Oh, okay, because I'm still checking that one. All right. But now I can go in. All right. So notice again, validate cell temp not empty, validate cell temp is numeric, validate cell temp in the range. But now I don't want to calculate the Celsius temperature. I want to calculate the Fahrenheit temperature. Again, I'm getting the error because, of course, this hasn't been written yet. So we're coming down to the bottom here. And not returning anything, so it's a void. And again, just to be kind of consistent between the two, I'm going to grab this. put it in here. And now, no, I don't want to say Celsius. I want to say Fahrenheit. And it's a different formula, but we're given the formula up on top. And again, we'll put an M here, and we will put an M here. And now we're going to say TXT far temp equals Fahrenheit dot toString, or again, we could do it this way. All right. If this now works, if it works, remember that previously we went in and did this. We put a 75 here, click the button, and I think it was 2389 we got there. Okay. Now if I clear and put a 23.89 there, I get a 75 there. So it appears as though it works. The only thing we haven't checked, let's try a negative 101, which is out of range. And we do get an out of range. And let's try positive 101. And again, we get an out of range. All right. If you don't know this, if I put 212 here, I should get 100 there and vice versa. Now I could have formatted everything here so it was 2 decimal places. All right. Maybe that would have been better. But ideally, at least, you now understand what it is we've been doing in here. All right. And I'm going to put all these, I'm going to try to be consistent with all of these here. And I will tell you, this is in many ways very, very, very similar to one of the test problems. Not identical, but it's very, very similar. It's you're doing a different calculation, but you can write it like this if you're so inclined. All right. Again, this is not the only way this could be done. I'm really trying to modularize here. What we had been doing previously is we've been doing our empty or not, our is numeric or not, and our range checks. Mainly, we've been doing those all, some of them like in one routine. I'm now doing them in 2 different routines. All right, so let me do a file save all. I'll clean this up a little bit before I put it out there on the system. All right, so let's close this. And I'm going to again come in, right mouse click, choose add, choose new project, choose Windows Forms app.NET framework, and this will be pretest 02_02. This is the second problem that we were given. All right. And it's the one with the baseball stuff in it. So let's take a very quick look at it on the test page. All right. I'm going to grab this so we've got something to put in there right away. All right. So in baseball, a player's average is calculated by dividing their hits by their at-bats. For example, a player with 4 hits and 10 at-bats, 4 divided by 10 equals 0.4 or 0.400. Typically, that's called a 400 average. So as it says, write a C# GUI Windows Forms app that lets the user input hits and at-bats and calculate the batting average. Also in here, keep track of the highest batting average, lowest batting average, and the total number of averages that have been calculated. Again, we've done this kind of thing before with our employee program. Store these as read-only text boxes. For hits and at-bats, verify that, that both of them are not empty, that they are numeric, and they have a value of 0 or more. For hits, though, you can't have more hits than the number of at-bats you have. So we'll have to check that one as well. All right. So literally, that is everything that we have to check in this particular example right here. All right. So let's start by doing this. I copied that over. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to open up the code window, get rid of this. Paste that in. Now I've got my prologue in there, my comments. All right, I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to immediately change the name of my form. So I'm going to rename it FRM. I mean, I can call it whatever I want. I'll just call it batting average. All right, hit enter. I should get my message. I did. All right, yes. I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to put my text as calculate batting average. I don't know what it said in there, but that's fine. All right. And I'm going to click on here. I'm going to change the color of my form, the background color, just like the last time, because I think it comes out the best. I'm going to make it yellow again. I'm going to make this a little wider because I'm doing totals in here. And I need 6 labels, 6 text boxes, and 3 buttons. All right. So let's start with the 6 labels. And again, you don't have to do this. You can do it different ways. But again, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make them transparent labels. All right, so I will come over to here and set the auto size to false. All right, and then make that a little bit bigger like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to copy it a couple times, put one here and one here. Okay, actually, I will change the color here because we have 6 of them. A little hard to keep track otherwise. There, it's a little easier to see what's going on then. All right, and I'm going to move these over. I'm going to make 3 more of them. Then I'll have to change their color as well, but that's fine. All right, and now put in my 6 text boxes. Okay, and my 3 buttons. That doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to lock my form into place. No, before I do that, I'm going to change so that everything in here is the same font size. All right, that's done. Now I can lock my form and my controls into place. All right, and let's come in here and just do what we always do. So this will be BTN calculate. And we'll have calculate there. All right, this will be BTN clear. And we will have clear there. And this last one will be BTN exit. And we will have exit there. And I've already added my underscores. Hopefully you saw that. All right, so those are done. Okay. And what you do next is, of course, it's up to you. I'm just going to do my labels next. So I'm going to call this, these are at bats. So this will be LBL at bats. And I put it at the wrong thing. Fortunately, I had this by my button. So let's fix that. There we go. And we'll just do it like this. So this will be our TXT at bats. All right, this next one will be our hits. And TXT hits. And the last one will be average. So this will be TXT average. All right, those are done. And then we've got highest average, lowest average, and total number of averages. All right. Okay, there's highest average. And we'll make that one TXT highest average. And this one is lowest average. Meaning that'll be TXT lowest average. And the last one is total number of averages. I can't use that pound sign in there. It'll be illegal. So I'll just call it total num averages. All right, that's in the name, but in the actual text, I can put it in as what's shown on there. So total number averages. All right, and this will be again TXT. What did I call it? Total num averages. So just copy that. All right, did I rename everything or did I miss anything? Taking a quick look, it looks like everything has been renamed. All right, so again, I'll come in here now, click on my form. I'm going to set my accept button to BTN calculate, my cancel button to BTN clear. I'm going to set my Windows start position to center screen. Now, this field here, this one, and this one, these are all read-only fields. So I've highlighted all four, going over to the read-only and setting it to true. All right, so I'm going to now come in and I'm going to set my tab order to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so view tab order, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Do another view tab order. And that should be done. All right, I'm good time for a file. Save all. I'm going to go back to my code and just run it just to see what it looks like. Of course, as always, I forgot to change my startup project. All right, so that looks okay. All right. Now, very similar to the stuff we did before. The value inputted is not empty. The value input is not non-numeric, etc. All right. Okay, so we're going to do a lot of the same stuff that we did previously. All right, there'll be our calculate, our clear, and our exit. Let's just get those out of the way. And I think I kept that one up there from before I did. Good. So I will again have that show error message. So I'm going to copy all that stuff in. In fact, just do this. There we go. All right, I've got that done. And to clear, I want to clear this and this and this and set it back to here. These are final totals, so I don't want to clear those. So it's 3 clears and a set focus. All right. Notice I can do it like this too. I could just say txt at bats.clear. All right. All right. I should now be able to go in and run this and check my 2 buttons should be working, hopefully. So for clear, I'll put something here and click down here. Click clear. That looks like it's working. And exit also looks like it's working. Okay. You know that the way I do things, I'm going to take this and align it in the center. Same with this one. And I'm going to take all my text boxes and center those as well. All right, so all that's done. So now we can calculate, all right, which is basically, again, pretty much just all we have left to do. All right, so we came in, changed the name of our form, changed the text at the top of the form, etc. All right. And then we came in, we created the GUI, made sure, of course, that we changed the name of everything that's in there, etc. All right. Now, I did make some class level variables. I did not have anything in here that I had that was a constant. All right. So up at the top of the program, all right, right after this, I'm going to declare and initialize class variables. Move that over and move this over too. All right. You didn't have to do this. Well, if you didn't, you'd have to do it in a different way. But this was going to be, well, what do I have here? I'm going to have an int that I called total number of averages. So every time I do one and it's valid, I want to add to that counter. I had a decimal that I called lowest. batting average. Set that equal to, believe it or not, 1,000. I'll explain why in a minute. And then had another one called highest batting average. And I set that equal to 0. Again, I'll explain why on both of those in just a second. I want to make sure that the first time I put in an average, boom, it becomes the high, boom, it becomes the low. All right. Unless the person got a hit every time they were up to bat, or unless they never got a hit, these will both change. So if I put in 4 and 10 like before, if I put in 4 hits in 10 at bats, this will become 400. This will become 400. All right. So that's what I wanted, the way I wanted to do it. All right. So those are my final things, so to speak. I also have an int for at bats. Set that equal to 0. And int for hits. Set that equal to 0. And a decimal for average. Set that equal to 0.00 M. All right, I'm not going to move that stuff over. That's all fine. Now, I decided again to do this doing it very similar to the way I did the last one. And what I mean is I came in and decided what I wanted to do was use a keep going type of variable. Nothing special about the word keep going, but so you might say, yeah, why didn't you use something like continue? Because continue is a reserved word in the language. It has a special meaning, right? So I didn't want to do that, all right? But coming down into here now into our calculate, all right? So in here, all right? All right, so again, I'm going to call a routine because just like I mentioned before, this is kind of the driver for everything. Okay, so that's going to be my calculate average. So what do I want to do in there? Well, going back to here, all right, we have to do 2 things. Okay, and what do I mean? Well, I'm going to do all 3 of these first for my at-bats. Then I'm going to do the same 3 things for my hits. Then I'm going to come down and do this one. So I'm going to have 7 routines that I'm going to call from here. 6 of them, all right, will be the same almost, in that there'll be 3 for at-bats and there will be 3 for hits. 1 will be a special one because it's only for the hits. All right. Okay, so let's come down here and start writing them. This is also known, just so you know, sometimes it's called a Boolean flag. All right. But again, with a Boolean variable, it has to be true or false. Okay. Let's do this one. Instead of setting it to true, let's set it equal to this. So we'll set it equal to validate at bats not empty. All right, you should very much by now understand how this one is going to be written, what it's going to look like, because again, it's very, very, very similar to what we just did in the last program. So again, we'll come in here, we'll start with string txt at bats equal txt at bats dot text dot trim. All right. Not sure why I'm getting an error there. We'll fix it in a second. Use of unassigned local variable, txt at bats. Isn't that what we called it? Txt at bats. So private bool, validate at bats not empty, string, txt at bats. Well, I don't know what I did wrong. We'll figure it out in just a second. All right, we'll have a bool in here, and that's going to be our return value. And we'll set that equal to true. All right. That's what I want. I just want to call this at AB. How about ABs for at bats? That's why it's giving me the error. Okay. So if ABs equal nothing, well, we know that we put nothing in for that text box. All right. Did we copy the show error message? Yes, we did. So I want to show error message. All right. And it says something like at bats cannot be empty. At bats text box empty. Set the focus and set the return value and then return. And again, now, I don't know why I put those parens there, but now we should be able to check that. Let's go do a file, save all. I don't know if I've saved or not. All right, so if this is empty, at bats cannot be empty. All right, so we've got our first check out of the 7 we need to make. All right, so we're right here. If keep going, now I want to say keep going equal validate at bats is numeric. All right. Else, well, then returned it false. So we want to just return. All right. So let's write this one. Again, very similar to before. So put string there, right? Okay. And we'll have our result in here too. Just like before. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here and say result equals and another decimal dot try parse. We're parsing ABs and we're going to put the result, if it works, into at bats. Okay, it doesn't like that, so why not? Because that's an integer, and I tried doing a decimal parsing. So that should be int. Okay, that either worked or it didn't work. Okay, if it didn't work, all right, we'll do our show error message. And I'm going to grab the error. I like my errors to be pretty consistent. Okay, when I write these. Now there was something put in there. Oops. So what the heck did I just do here? All right. Okay, it's got to go in here. There we go. So at bats. So since there was something in there, we want to say txt at bats dot text. We want to clear it out. Then we want to set the focus. Doesn't matter the order in which you do those. All right. And finally, we want to return red fill. All right, so that's that one. So we now should be able to come in here and check to verify. So if you've already seen this, if there's nothing in there, we get that error. We put non-numeric, we now get that error. All right, so then next we've got to do, and the next thing to do in here is to, let's see, what else do we have to do? We have to just verify that it's 0 or more. All right, now there's two ways of doing this, just so you know. All right, let's make our life a little bit easier on ourselves. All right, and that is we can come in here where we've been doing this, and here we said must be numeric. All right, what if we made this a compound check? We can do this. You don't have to, but I can say if not result or at bats less than 0. Oops. All right, so at bats non-numeric or negative and greater than 0. Okay, that just made it, the checking we had to do a little bit easier. Sometimes, depending on the severity of the checks you're making, sometimes people will say, no, that should be broken up into 2 different routines. That's what we did on the last one, if you remember. All right, in the last program, we broke it up into 2 different routines. Here I'm combining it into one. All right, I'm not saying that one is better than the other either. But now you'll notice that if I put in this, it changes to or negative and greater than 0. And if I put in a negative number there, I should get the same thing. All right. It's all a matter of taste when you're doing this. I mean, literally, I've said this before. I know sometimes people I think I'm trying to be funny. I'm not. All right. But there really is no coding police that will look at this. Now, that said, sometimes when you write code for a company, what may end up happening is you may have to go through what's called a code review, where people look at your code and somebody might, come around then and say, hey, you really should have made that into 2 different routines. All right. Or they may suggest it, but it's not like your boss is going to really look at it and do anything about it. Okay. So now we have done it for we've done these 3 tests or checks in here. All right. 2 of them we combined, but we did them for at bats. All right. So we got this. So if keep going, now we can check and start looking at hits. So we had here keep going equal validate that at bats are not empty. So we will validate that hits are not empty. All right. And again, if it didn't work, meaning we have anytime we're getting a bad return here or a false return, we're just returning. There's no sense in going on. All right, so let's write this one now. And this time I will copy the stuff in. All right, so we've got this here that at bats. So we don't want ABs now, we want hits. Let's just call it H. And that'll be txt hits dot text dot trim. And the reason I'm calling it H, we already have a variable called hits that we're going to be using later. Oops. So if H is empty, hits Hits cannot be empty. Hits text box empty. All right, make that hits as well. And return. So now we should be able to check our second text box. And again, I can put any, I can put any number in there I want. All right, hits text box empty. All right, good. All right, so the next one that we'll do, again, you can just see as I'm working my way down here. And we call the next one validate at bats not empty. Then we validated at bats is numeric. So we'll validate hits is numeric. And again, I'll just copy that in from before and make my changes. Always dangerous to do this copying like I'm doing in here, because if you forget one of them, you're going to know it when you run it because things will be screwed up. So now I should be able to check that. And remember, there's two things to check here. All right, I want to check non-numeric. And I want to check negative. And it looks like both of those are working. All right, so now we have come in and we've done these three for both of them, but we haven't done this. All right, so what we have to check right there is we have to validate that the hits, all right, are less than or equal to the at-bats. All right, so that's all that's really left other than figuring our stuff out. So again, this was another else return. You can put that all on one line like that. I don't like doing that, so I don't. And I gave this a really long name. Validate hits less than or equal to at bats. To at bats. All right, so let's write this one. And again, once we're down to here, we do not have to do any checks to see if anything is numeric. We've already done that. All right. So not a whole heck of a lot to do with this one. In fact, I kind of already wrote it. All right. Kind of already wrote it in the name of the routine. Okay, so we'll do our right? So what do we want to do in that case? Well, we've done that already. All right. Well, the problem is with our hits. So we'll say txt hits dot text equals nothing. Txt hits, oops, dot focus, and our ret val equal false. And then finally return our ret val. All right. Now that should be everything as far as our checks go. Let's check that one out. No pun intended. So 45, 222. Hits greater than at bats. Hits cannot be greater than at bats. All right. Now it's doing nothing because we haven't put that code in yet. All right. So what we want to do then is we've gotten to the point right here. This will be another else return. And I'll just say if, keep going. All right. And I mean, in this case, what do I want to do? Well, it's kind of funny because we called this whole thing in here calculate average. And that's really a crummy name because we're not calculating the average in here. So let's change the name of this to validate input fields. Why? Because that's what we're doing, is we're validating our two input fields. All right. Now I can call calculate. Calculate batting average and update totals. Again, kind of a long name, but that's not a problem. All right. Now I'm right at the bottom. I could put in here an else return, but it's redundant because there was no other code. So to return anyway. But if you feel better at doing that, you can say else return. Either way works just fine. All right. It's not a bool. I'm just calculating some stuff. So it's a void. Okay. So the current average, I think we've already got a variable for that we called average right there. Now notice again, what are we doing? When we do this, we're dividing an int by an int. So it's right now it's going to say all of our averages are 0 unless we cast one or both of these. All right, so I'm going to cast them both. You don't have to do that, but I'm going to do that. All right, so I'm just going to say here average equal decimal hits decimal at bats. And then I'm going to say txt average dot text equals average dot toString, but I want to put this to 3 decimal places because that's how averages are actually shown. And again, I could come in here and use string interpolation, okay? Like that. That would work just as well, okay? Now, we're not done yet. We haven't done the right-hand side of those totals calculations. We'll do those in a minute. But what I want to see is if I put 10 in there for at-bats, and if I put 4 in there for hits, does it come out here 0.400? And it is. There's even a way, I don't remember what it is, that you can suppress that. If you don't want the leading 0, it doesn't hurt anything to put it there. Everything appears to be working though. All right, so that calculated the batting average. Now, The other thing I can do, just so you know, all right, what did we call this down here? Calculate batting average and update totals. Well, why don't we change this to just calculate batting average? And then right from here, we'll call a new routine we're about to write that's called update totals. All right. All right. And I'm just going to use our right variable name. So this is total number of averages, lowest and highest. Just going to grab that for now. It's going to give me errors. We'll have them go on in just a second. All right. So total number of averages plus txt total number of averages dot text equals total number of averages dot toString. We don't have to do any fancy stuff with that. So that one's done. Again, we could write that with string interpolation as well. All right, let's see if that's working before we do the other ones. So now if I put a 10 in here and a 4 in here, I should get 400 there, and that should go to 1. Oh, down there, sorry. If I just run it a few times, okay, it appears as though that's working. All right. Well, we know what our average is already. So if our average is less than our total batting, our lowest batting average, well, we know we've got a new lowest total batting average. And again, we can do this in both ways, either with string interpolation or with not with string interpolation. Okay. And I'm just going to copy, whoops, I'm going to copy this one down. And now I want to say if it's higher than the highest. All right, let's see if it works. Oops. 500, 500, 501, good. Clears all those, good. All right, 2, that's become my lowest. 3, that's become my highest. So it appears as though everything is working. All right. So tomorrow when you come in here to take this test, all right, again, these will be out there and they're meant to be used as guides or whatever you want to call them. All right. You don't have to do things the way that I'm doing them. If you think that the way I've been doing them, I'm trying to do them in what I consider to be an intuitive way of doing things. All right. If you don't agree and you come up with your own way, like I said before, more power to you. That's fine. All right. And what I'm going to do is clean these up just a little bit, put some more comments in here. All right. And I believe I'm going to check this out. I want to show this to you quickly. Right. Great. I just totally lost my train of thought here. Oh, I know what it is. Under my GitHub, we should have C# pretests. right here. And these are the ones that I wrote previously, all right, that were in there, all the ones for chapter or pretest 1. So this one will be updated, all right? And I'll actually update it twice just so you can see this, all right? So all these work, but like I said, I want to pretty this up a little bit, etc. But I can come in here now and I can go into my pretest folder right here. There's my Git, right mouse click, open Git bash here. Now, couple things. First of all, I do not have to do a git init. It's already there. So I can just do a git add dot. All right. And it should bring in the extra stuff. Now, what if I want to know if there's anything in there? And I haven't shown you this yet, but what if I want to know, hey, did it bring something in? It just gave me that back. I can type in git status. And now it shows me the new stuff that I've got in there. All right, you can see there's quite a few things. All right. So now I can say git commit -m pretest number 2 included. And I'll even put today's date, which is 1/29/2024. All right. And it's again telling us what it's bringing in there. All right. And then finally, if I go in and say git push -u origin master, and again, for most of you, if not all of you, yours will probably be main, but hit enter. Okay. Doesn't like something, I'll have to fix it. I'm not worried about it at all. It says failed to push some refs. I actually know what the problem is, and I'll fix that in a little bit. But the point is this, what you will be able to do, hopefully by no later than noon and probably earlier than that, is you'll be able to go out here. When I refresh this, it'll have your new pretest in there. So you will be able to go out to right here. All right. And again, you don't need that. All right. So you will be able to go out to what you see there on the screen. Okay. And grab that particular repository. Now, what I do want for tomorrow is I want you to at least try to put this out onto GitHub. All right. Because we have to get to that point where we, we're learning a source control management system. Could you still just take your folder, zip it, and email to me? The answer is yes. But we're going to reach a point in the semester where our programs are going to be so big that you're not going to be able to do that. So I want you to get used to starting to work with GitHub. You can go back and look at some of the earlier lectures. All right. If you try it tomorrow and you're having problems, feel free to send me an email and I'll try to work with you on it to get it to work. All right. That's about all I can think of. So again, tomorrow by 7 a.m., I will have emailed you C# hot number 2, which is the hot on chapters 4 and 5. And again, I believe there's 3 problems on it. All right. At least 2 of the 3 are really similar to what we've done today. And the other one isn't much different. I don't think it is, at least. All right. So that will be emailed to you by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. I will go over the test instructions, show you a working version of each problem between 8:05 and about 8:20. Sometimes it takes a little more time than 15 minutes. We'll see. I'll try to get it done in 15 minutes. Then you have dedicated to you tomorrow, 8:20 till 11:50, or 3.5 hours to work on this. But if you don't get it done in that time, or if you're, at work or whatever, no problem. But you do have to get it done by midnight. All right. So that's what I'm looking for. Okay. And as always, if you have questions when you're taking the test, email me. jpscott@rankin.edu. All right. Other than that, that's really all I can think of. So I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a nice rest of the day.